Cheers to you all, which is the correct thing for me to say because we're playing some WoW. Yes, we are. We are playing some WoW. I feel like sanitized after the last race, which obviously I was very unhappy with the last boss design. Made me feel a bit gross. And it was time to jump back in. And I wanted to talk today. It's not a guide or anything like that. It's more like a piece of advice that I've noticed is probably relevant to a lot of people because so many people are returning for the patch, which is unsurprising. It's probably the last raid of the expansion. Yeah, last raid of the expansion. And it's going to be when everything kicks off. Typically, like when you get to the end of the expansion, everything's wacky, everything's crazy. And usually they've solved the sort of banality grinds, I would call them, fairly. And I'm not saying that in a derogatory way, by the way. All MMOs have them throughout the course of expansion, but at the end of the expansion, they're like wrapping all that stuff up and they've accelerated it and sped it up and done all those kinds of things. So a lot of people like really like coming in towards the end of the expansion, and I've noticed that. I've got some stories for you, man. I've got some stories for you of that happening. And a lot of people trying the one-button rotation out, especially returning players, and having mixed results for seemingly what I can tell from just some off-the-cuff comments that are happening. But what are we going to be playing? The ultimate question, as always. What are we going to be playing? I don't know what it was. I couldn't tell you. It's certainly, I don't think FF14's influence. If you haven't watched any FF14, I understand. But in FF14 rating, I main a healer. Essentially, it's a Disc Priest. It's called a Scholar. Works similarly to a Disc Priest, but not exactly. But over in FF14, I love healing because it's such a set structure which works really well for healing design, and the gameplay there suits me way more than DPS and tanking over there. Not so much in WoW. WoW could be more random. Things can go wrong in very weird ways. You know, people's output is very variable due to gear. Like, it can be a whole shebang of things that are different over there. And I haven't healed as a main since the Burning Crusade. And I think that's what really inspired me. I always want to get better. I always want the challenge. I always want to tackle my weakest areas, and healing was it. And I was literally sat at home on my couch and I was watching some something that was non-gaming related, and I was just, my brain wandered off and I was like, man, I haven't really healed in a long time, like in a take it semi-seriously kind of way. And I was like, the last time I really healed anything was probably Lady Ashvane raid, whatever that was, the Ashara raid. And that was me stepping in when we needed like an extra healer, like Orgazoa or something like that. Other than that, I've been DPS or tank, right? I'm little history lesson. I've tanked for about 12, 13 years. The rest of that time, like 7 years, I've been DPS. And then I was a healer in vanilla from the start, from all the way from Molten Core to Naxxramas. And then I healed a bit of the first tier of the Burning Crusade until I got tired of it and swapped over to Warlock and Rogue. So I haven't really healed a lot. So I felt like healing. So then I started flicking through some videos. I watched some like Jack Be Casting. Love Jack. Every time I get to meet him, it's wonderful. And just flicked through some stuff. And I was like, you know what? I kind of want to take it OG. I kind of want to roll OG. I kind of want to play some Priest. I loved my Priest. I was very good back in the day, but I was good by like vanilla standards. Which is not great. Sorry to all the people who take Classic WoW very seriously, but compared to today, yeah, not great. So I was like, you know what? I want to play some Priest. And I was glad to see when I watched Jack's videos, it's like Dis and Holy are viable. Like a lot of people are playing Holy and Dis in raids, playing a lot of Dis in dungeons, but also Holy is doing okay. And I was like, okay, cool. And then also their hero talents. People are swapping between like Archon, Oracle, Voidweaver. I was like, that's a good mix of different things for me to learn. I love learning in this game. Like, I absolutely adore it. So that was the plan. Problem number one, and this is where it becomes relevant to you guys who are probably returning, especially if you're re-rolling in some way. Where is the character now? Where is it? So it's for those of you who've had alts in the past and they've been, you know, on the bench, dusting away. Where is it now? It's not good. I did cap it in Dragonflight. I don't know how at all. There must have been, I know I didn't cheat because I cheated in BFA. That is on record. I've done my time. So in Dragonflight, I must have capped this Priest during some sort of bonus XP event, or some sort of like rested only thing. I did cap it in Dragonflight. It was bad. How bad, Mike? Bad. I logged in. I did the War Within intro, arrived in Donegal, and then I was like, what should I do to level? You know what? I think I'm undergeared. I didn't check. I'll be honest with you, I didn't check because why would I? It's open world content. Who cares? So I went down to the beach to do the very intro quest to the War Within. I couldn't kill anything. I'm not joking. I wish I was. With full CC, dispersion, VE, healing. I was playing Shadow, obviously. I couldn't kill anything. I had item level 190, which I think is like Shadowlands. I don't know what I did at Dragonflight, but it was bad. Let's say that. It was bad. It was really bad. I was like, I can't kill anything. I was like, oh God. Because my hope was, the way I've always approached this kind of thing is like, I might have a rough half hour, but I'm going to start getting quest rewards, and they usually just bring you up to current expansion, so it's whatever. And then you can just goof around and do some leveling. But that was not the case at all. That was not the case. So what I ended up doing is I did have to do a bit of an auction house trip. This has been a weird one again for returning players. A lot of people saying like, oh, you can get this gear like really cheap, like very, very cheap, like maybe 20k to get yourself up to like 6 something. No, at least not on my server. Like to get to like, I think I got the character to about, what did I get it to? I think I got it to like 4 something, and that cost me a fair bit as well. It was very expensive. I didn't replace all the pieces either because they started charging like 70k for like a headpiece and stuff like that. So I got some like bare. Remember, I can't wear like capped stuff. I'm level 80, right? I can't wear like max level stuff. So I got to like, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 something like that. Just buying scraps. Enough. I literally just bought enough to be able to kill some enemies. That's all I wanted in the world. Hilariously, I murdered everything when I got back. I went over, I spent like 20k, I came back and just murdered everything. Okay, so we're on our way. So I leveled actually insanely quickly. There was no bonus going on at the time. I'd actually just missed out on one of the leveling bonus seasons they'd done. But it still took me like, I don't know, 4 hours maybe? Dungeons were ridiculous. They were like almost a full level all the way to level cap, doing dungeons. Maybe like 3/4 of a level per dungeon. So obviously I'm playing Priest. I was just queuing as a healer DPS. Got DPS every time, interestingly enough. And just capped it away. So there I am. I'm on this scuffed character. Like really, really bad. And that was our starting point. So what should you do when you're returning? It's all very well and good watching a bunch of like, hey, return here, return there. You're going to run into a bunch of issues which are very apparent if you are returning after a hiatus. I've only missed actually 1 tier. On this character, I haven't done anything in the War Within. Like, my DK has done the Undermine area to see and experience it and drive the car and whatever. But this Priest hasn't done anything. Blizzard really, I think, should have some sort of, like, not a welcome back screen, but some sort of recommended content screen that's very apparent. Because if you look at Donegal on a relatively fresh character, it's so overwhelming with the amount of stuff that's going on there. And finding out, like, which of this buffet of things is actually kind of relevant isn't easy at all, because it doesn't, like, stand out in a big way. There's a lot of blue exclamation marks, there's a lot of yellows, there's all sorts of stuff everywhere. And it would take you probably a couple of days to work through all this to find what's good. What is good? Getting the belt from Delves. You can do this in, like, T1 Delves. It's, like, really easy and gives you a 690 up to 701 belt. That's enormous. That should be like front and center. There should be a screen that's like, hey, this is here. You should go and do it. Similar to the Ring last season. Something along those lines that's just like, you should probably go and do this. At least Horrific Visions have a standout icon that's a little bit different. But I would certainly like them to do that, because they're still giving renown and like world quests for like old Season 1 content, which is just way behind the curve. So I got started, and I had to follow the advice of the chat. It's like, you should get the Delve belt. I was like, all right, we'll do that. And I'm like, okay, what about the world boss? What about this? And then it was recommended is like, we should probably just do an M0 sweep. M0s, I forgot that M0s are not M0 anymore. They're like Mythic 10. But it was actually fine, which was weird. It was actually fine. Like, my heals were bad. Like, I couldn't really top anybody off, and there was a couple of scary pulls. I think we had a very nasty one. The opening of Priory was really brutal, and the worst one actually was the opening of Cinderbrew Meadery. That first room, like, brother, that was bad. Also discovered I had a weak aura that accepted reses and releases. I don't know why we needed that at some point, but I got stuck in an endless loop because the whole party had wiped and all the enemies were on top of me, of my character just rezzing immediately and being immediately killed and circling around. I saw the armor icon telling me about my durability just drain. It's completely broken immediately. I managed to get out of the dungeon, but it was bad. And then I discovered something really interesting. Before we get to like the crux of what I want to talk about, is that M0 is so good that when I came out of M0, and I did manage to find an item for every slot, so I was like War Within Epic or whatever, that achievement, I had nullified all of the game content in the outside world at that point. It's such a strange feeling to be back there just after a few hours. And I mean that. World Boss was irrelevant. Events were irrelevant. Delves were irrelevant. Bountiful Delves were irrelevant. Besides getting crests and stuff for upgrades. But I came out at 640 something. And everything was just dead. Like, okay, everything else is like useless now in terms of power progression. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I had a few little minutia things to do, like collecting the correct items for the belt to activate the correct secondary stats, you know, stupid things like that. But ultimately, if you can get an M0 group together, go for it. But what I actually wanted to talk about is what I noticed. And in these M0s, by the way, if you watch the VOD back, you'll see that there's people in those M0s who are testing out the one button rotation, not having a good time. One of the Ellie Shamans was like, just an FYI to everybody, it does not work for Ellie Shaman. I'm like, okay. Kind of funny. And people just generally having a goofy time and messing around, which is nice to see, because M0 is a very relaxing experience. In fact, we're going to be jumping into that and go to Karesh, the new patch that's coming. Playing min-maxi, depending on what your skill level was when you went away, right? Let's talk about this from like the perspective of people who left the game for a while, had a hiatus. Depending on where you were when you left, there's a temptation to get back there immediately. So that will range, right? Some people will have just been like very casual. I play WoW, I do some world quests, do some solo play, I enjoy delves or whatever. You know, that solo sort of lone warrior experience. Not too bothered about M+, not too bothered about arena, not too bothered about raiding. Might do some LFR, maybe an occasional normal dip in, toe dip in, something like that. But generally speaking, solo experience. In which case, you can come straight back and you're probably going to be pretty fine. And maybe even try out the one-button rotation thing, which helps with that kind of content. Certainly if it's not content that you focus on, because you enjoy WoW as sort of like a brain switch off. And, you know, you watch streams, you watch me, hey, or you watch something Netflix or whatever. However, if you used to be a raider, certainly I find this with early Mythic high heroic players. If you take a hiatus for an expansion or a few patches, the game changes so dramatically. Certainly in terms of power level, how talents work, they're somewhat reworked, even minor ways, every patch. And if you miss out on a few patches, that can be relatively dramatic. However, the core of the system remains the same. What tends to change more than anything is really min-maxy stuff. But you can pick up, if you've played for a while, certainly those of us who've had like a decade plus, 5 years plus, you're kind of going to be the same, right? You're kind of going to get the feel of it. Dispriest has changed a hell of a lot, but the general crux has been the same since like Wrath of the Lich King. Like, you still get that same sort of like shielding, sort of damaging gameplay, like the Kata era. So it's not that difficult. Generally, you just get new cooldowns. How does that work? And as long as you got some general understanding, you'll probably get a feel for how it works. However, I find a lot of people, if they've been quite good in the past, feel that when they step foot back onto Azeroth again, once their boots on the ground and they're back in, they try and get straight to top level as fast as humanly possible. I find that to be a mistake and cause a lot of stress, because one thing that's very apparent amongst a lot of the player base of World of Warcraft is the stress of the gameplay. Time is an M+. The fear of toxicity is a huge factor for a lot of people in World of Warcraft, even people who play day to day. And coming back, certainly if you've had a bit of a reputation in the past, if you're playing with your friends again, things like that. And I'm talking about this not just from my perspective, but from the amount of people who I've asked to come back and have tried to be that guy again immediately, day one, and haven't done it, and actually get really salty and sad about it. And I guess I wanted to talk about is like, that's just not what I would recommend as a way of approaching the game if you're returning. And it's certainly something that became apparent to me because I was streaming, is like, oh, just so you know, like the way you play dis ramp, by the way, is like this 14 strict button rotation. I'm like, that's great. We'll get there in a few days. It's not what I'm doing right now. There's a more important element that I think everybody should be encouraging themselves to do when you're returning to the game for the first couple of days. And this will make the transition into getting much better so much easier. And that is just feel things out. Don't worry about the min-maxed rotation sort of thing. Feel out, especially if you haven't played for a while, or it's a new class. When do your cooldowns come back? How often do I have access to these things? Oh, that's actually different than what I remember it being. So I had this feeling with like shield. The last time I played this, which was probably back in BFA, shields were like really plentiful. Like you could shield all the time. You had Rapture, which you still can have, but doesn't get used. Like shields were really plentiful. I didn't have Renew, which was crazy. And it's all different now. I want to spend this first, and I recommend this to anybody, spend the first few days in places you can make mistakes, or that being like trying to pass 99% doesn't matter, right? That is what your LFR is for. It's what your M0s are for. That's what they're for, is to go in there and you don't have to play super optimally, and it's fine. It's totally fine. If you have a reasonable understanding, but you want to get used to seeing when things come back, how often you can do them. Oh, this pairs up really nicely. This doesn't. Oh, I have this spell in between that one. And what happens is you end up with a bunch of like Lego bricks that are starting to form some sort of order. And you're like, ah, okay. And you just have this time. And it might take, depending on the player ability, like 10 to 12 hours to get that feel of what's going on. This is obviously not including the one button stuff. This is like you actually playing and getting that feel for it. And I think this is so important because when it then comes to like, okay, if you want to play absolutely optimally, you put these Lego bricks in this order. That will make so much more sense to you. And you'll also be getting your muscle memory back for what's going on, that it will just slot in really nicely without much complication. And that allows you to be like, oh, okay, I get it. Yeah, because I've been doing this and this. Oh, that pairs with that. All right, cool. And then you've already got this like feel for it. And everything falls into place, for me, way faster. I think it's far more difficult, personally, to come back to the game after a long time, be stressed about it, and so you go and read the guide before you even log in, right? You might go to your Wowhead, your Icy Veins, your YouTube, your Discords, whatever, and you just read and read and read. You can have 12 hours, right? You're not being thrown into the race to will first the second you log in. You're good. And you're reading like, okay. And there's a lot of acronyms, right? So it's like, I need to do SF into FH into this. Okay, what is that? What is this? And it can all feel a bit overwhelming. Instead of going in, playing around for a few hours, okay, now I get what's going on. Copying a talent build, totally do that, right? There's so many variations these days, and people have been mathing out and testing and working out for literally like the last year or so. Yeah, do that, and that way you know what the building blocks is you're playing with, but putting them in order and stuff I think is a way less stressful way of doing it. And I'm recommending this as dealing with that stress of coming back, because it was very apparent a lot of people come back and feel very intimidated by what they can do. And that sucks, and I know what it feels like. I totally understand it. And the best way of coping with that is like just go places where you can make mistakes and it's not going to screw you over, or certainly not get you attacked in any way, right? It's totally fine. And then start edging up. So we did normal and heroic raid. I was actually, I mean, despite my feelings about the mythic raid, obviously from a viewer perspective, the heroic raid was interesting, especially because people are very overgeared for it now. Excuse me. What I actually found was everything was fine. I think we one-shot everything pretty much up until Gallywix. What a weird, and I'm not doubling down on my hatred of Galliwix. That's a Mythic exclusive situation. It was the healing requirement of that first phase, even though apparently it's been nerfed several times. Bizarre. Very bizarre. I know that if we were doing Heroic as the guild, we'd be like, what the hell? This is weird. It took us like, I don't know, 7 pulls to kill. Something like that. With some very, very strong healers in there as well. Like, I was the weakest healer. But we had some interesting pulls. Like, one pull I was like last man standing. Like, everybody else had died besides me and the tanks and a few other people. We were like holding on for dear life as it got to like, I don't know, 14% or something. Next one, I goofed. The icon changed. We were in for a soak and then it switched. And I was like, oh crap, it's changed to another thing and I couldn't get out. But we got it down. But yeah, weird. That was where that, but also for me, and I pointed this out, I was like, this is really enjoyable because it's the first time I've kind of been stressed, and now I'm also doing some progress. Certainly as playing Disc Priest, knowing when those exact damage events are coming out, that's where I can start applying the Lego bricks, right? That's when I can start thinking about it. Didn't do it perfectly by any means, but you could tell pull by pull, okay, now I'm starting to stagger things. I'm starting to get the timing right. I know I've got to move here, make X, Y, and Z happen. And that was really fun for me. Like, I need those scenarios. But so fun. There's just playing. So fun. So happy to be doing that. We're doing FF14 after the race. I'll be leaving for the race on Sunday for the big, obviously the race to world first. And I hope to see you guys there. Echo, I will be casting for Echo, and it's in Cologne in Germany where Gamescom is happening. There will be an open day. I'll get back to put a link down below. There will be an open day for people to come down. Depending on the race is variable. If the race finishes, the guys are all going to be there. If the race is still going on, it's going to be a big watch party. I mean, it should be like where the end of the race is. Who knows? But like casters and stuff will be around. So it's a huge caster lineup. And they're putting on food. There's going to be a whole thing. There's mini games, prizes, merchandise, all kinds of things going on. So I would love to see some of you there if you're in Germany or nearby. Even if you're not going to Gamescom, you want to drop by. So pay attention to that. And Ghost of Karesh is coming. So I'll have some videos on that as well. All right? So be good. Bye-bye.